We're watching a car crash in slow motion here. Everybody knows it. Some people would say, oh, Miss Williamson, you're delusional. I'll tell you what's delusional. What's delusional is just closing our eyes and crossing our fingers and just hoping that somehow Biden and Harris will be able to beat that juggernaut.
Ain't nothing changed, nothing new here to see. This ain't nothing but some political maneuvering.
America.
Welcome to the eulogy, eat it up. It's called political buffoonery.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to This Week in DUMBmocracy, where we showcase some of the dumbest news makers of the week. I got a bit of a political riddle for you guys out there. It's a little wonky, but let's see if you can get it. When is winning 80% of the vote in your primary a cause for concern? Well, if you're the politicos and the pundits and the prognosticators on the left, the answer is when you win 80%, but you lose a coalition that helped you get over the top in your last election. I'm talking about the uncommitted vote, the significant uncommitted vote registered against Joe Biden in the Michigan primary. We're going to discuss all of that, and we're going to get a little wonky in doing it. But before we do that, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other shows. And if you like what you see and hear in this or any other video on the channel, I'm going to ask you to smash that thumbs up button, like, comment, share the show with your friends, all that good stuff, because all that feeds the YouTube algorithm.
Yes, it must feed.
Thank you guys so much for helping to grow the channel. We're close to 1,700 subscribers. Can you get us over the top today? I hope you can. And especially to all you newbies out there, I hope that this video earns that subscription as we talk about when 80% of the vote is cause for concern. So Joe Biden won the vast majority of the vote in the Michigan primary. It's basically a meaningless primary. We all know he's going to be the nominee. But there was a protest vote organized by Rashida Tlaib and Democrats in the Southeast in two different counties where they got together to send a message to Joe Biden that you need us in order to carry the state. Let me show you what I mean by getting a little wonky with examining some numbers from the last election. So to help you follow along with my reasoning here, I created this little infographic that, you know what? Here, let me enlarge it right now so you see exactly what I'm talking about. So as you see here, in the general election back in 2020, Joe Biden carried the state of Michigan over Donald Trump by about 150,000 votes or so. This is important to note because in 2016, Donald Trump won Michigan by about 10 to 15,000 votes. So this swing was pretty significant. The reason for this swing was heavy turnout in those blue districts in the southeast of the state of Michigan, where Detroit is, where Dearborn, Michigan is, and where Rashida Tlaib's congressional district is. In essence, they helped carry Joe Biden to victory. Now let's look at what happened in the Michigan primary this year. So as you see here, if you take the uncommitted vote along with the vote that was earned by Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips, you get a total of 144,000 votes. It's the vast majority of the difference that Joe Biden needed to put him over the top in Michigan in 2020. Without these votes showing up again, Michigan is back in play for Donald Trump. Now, the cause for all of this, as you'll see, is the turnout in areas like Dearborn, Michigan, where Joe Biden was doing very well in 2020, but now those voters are sending a message to him in 2024. So this is CNN going through the vote tallies from Dearborn, Michigan, which happens to be in Wayne County, one of those heavily Democratic districts that put Joe Biden over the top against Donald Trump in 2020. The numbers here in the primary, although they are smaller because, again, this is really a meaningless primary. Joe Biden's going to be the nominee anyway, so a lot of people stayed home. But there was a significantly motivated block of voters who did this to Joe Biden.
This is what Joe Biden received. Again, forgive me, 1,141 votes. Dean Phillips, 54 votes. And uncommitted, make sure I get this right, 3,703 votes. So that's a wow. If you look at it this way, this is 23%. And this is 75%. And so This is just the city of Dearborn, but that is where the biggest pocket of the Muslim American, the Arab American population. This is a place President Biden carried big time in 2020. This is key to his chances of defeating Donald Trump in Michigan again.
A wow is correct. These voters that were significant to Joe Biden's victory in 2020 did not only not turn out for him in large numbers, but turned against him in significant numbers for this uncommitted push from Rashida Tlaib and leaders in that area. So what's the reason for this turn against Joe Biden? Are they turning into Trump voters all of a sudden? That's pretty unlikely, especially after you listen to some of the reactions from the leadership of this push for uncommitted votes in Michigan.
Democrats to listen to us. Quite frankly, none of us want Trump to win, which is exactly why we're doing this. This is the only way we can raise the flag to Democrats that you are going to lose unless you call for an ultimate ceasefire.
So there's the agenda, folks. It's not a Donald Trump agenda. It's an Israel-Hamas conflict agenda. You must call for a ceasefire or you will lose our vote. That's the message from this coalition. Now, Joe Biden is stuck here. He's got to walk a tightrope a little bit between these voters who are key to his victory in Michigan and other voters in other states that support Israel that may be the key to him winning those states as well. You see the dilemma here, right? It's either you piss off one population or you aggravate the other population. There's no pleasing in between. He's got to walk this delicate political tightrope in order to thread the needle to re-election.
This is a victory of American democracy tonight. This is a victory of American democracy.
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
So don't you try to spin this after tonight and say that the Democratic Party is fracturing. We are trying to save the Democratic Party from genocide.
That literally makes no sense.
I'm sorry, what? You can't say that this is the Democratic Party fracturing when you're a coalition member of the Biden team that is basically holding him up saying, do things our way or don't get our votes. That's literally a fracturing. You're trying to pull Joe Biden further to the left to go against Israel, a position that the United States has had for decades. You're trying to pull him away from that. And in essence, pulling him away from voters in other states that support his current stance in the Israel-Hamas conflict. That's why Joe Biden is trying to thread the needle with a temporary ceasefire plan to get hostages released and then pushing for Israel to cease conflict with Hamas. It's a very, very difficult position that they are putting Joe Biden in right now, politically speaking.
He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker.
We are trying to save the Democratic Party from the destruction of human rights and the disregard of humanity of our Palestinian brothers and sisters.
This is literally the tail wagging the dog here. This is a small but fervent coalition in comparison to the rest of the country, significant in Michigan for his voter turnout, for his margin of victory, that is really putting the squeeze on Joe Biden.
You see that we've had a diverse coalition of the Jewish community, the Black community, the Asian American community, the Hispanic community, the young community, the old community, social workers, teachers, everybody all over the country is standing with Michigan, and all eyes are on Michigan today.
I don't know if everybody is standing with Michigan. Again, if you look at the way Congress has been voting in affirming their loyalty and affirming their standing with Israel, I don't think you can say that you speak for the majority. I think you're the tail wagging the dog. And yes, this is a fracturing of the Democratic Party in Michigan. If you want to go around saying that Donald Trump earning over 60% shows a weakness because there's 30% of the vote or 35% of the vote going to other candidates like Nikki Haley, then that argument certainly applies here to Joe Biden as well in Michigan.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Let's see what the White House's reaction is to what happened in this primary. Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show. So we heard the spin from the uncommitted people in Michigan. Now let's hear from the White House.
Thank you, Karine. Was President Biden surprised that more than 100,000 voters in Michigan in yesterday's primary chose to vote that they were uncommitted?
So look, I'll say this: the president appreciates the people of Michigan coming out last night to make sure that their voices were heard yesterday. I think that's really important, and he is proud to have received more than 80% of the Democratic Party voters vote, and I think that's really important as it relates to the uncommitted. Look, I said this yesterday. There's been senior officials that have gone to Michigan as recently as earlier this month to hear directly from the Muslim and Arab American community, and we understand how personal this is, how this moment is incredibly painful, and we're going to continue to have those conversations, and we're going to make sure that we continue to listen and continue to engage. And as I mentioned earlier before, this is why it's important to get this hostage deal. It will be accompanied with a temporary ceasefire, and so we want to see that done. We want to see that moving forward. The president's going to continue to work on that 24/7, and let's not forget, we're going to continue to work on making sure there is a two-state solution as well. And so he appreciates folks getting out there, making their voices heard, but he also got more than 80% of the vote in the Democratic primary.
So you got to accentuate the positive and constructively engage on the negative. It's a sound political strategy from Joe Biden. I'm shocked that the Biden administration came up with it, actually. It's going out there and saying, look, we got over 80% of the vote. This was a dominant night. This was a big victory for Joe Biden. And yes, there are these uncommitted voters out there that we are engaging with, and we sympathize and empathize, and that's why we want to get the hostages out via a temporary ceasefire and go from there. Notice that we don't have specifics on what happens if they're successful in getting hostages freed, which would be a big victory for the Biden administration, by the way. But there's no discussion beyond a temporary ceasefire, which is probably rankling the uncommitted voting coalition and Rashida Tlaib specifically when it comes to what's going on in Gaza in trying to eradicate Hamas from those borders. But one thing I want to point out is that not only are Republicans and the Trump campaign smelling blood in the water about the fracturing of this coalition right now, but also other Democrats are sensing weakness from Joe Biden, including Marianne Williamson, who had suspended her campaign before the Michigan primary, but is now back in the race.
Hey, I have an important announcement to make. As of today, I am unsuspending my campaign for the presidency of the United States. I had suspended it because I was losing the horse race, but something so much more important than the horse race is at stake here.
Okay, I just gotta stop for a minute. The smoky voice. It's kind of cool, isn't it? It sounds like an old-time movie, why don't you come around and see me sometime, big boy type of voice. Just wanted to point that out. All right, we'll get back to it now.
And we must respond. Right now, we have a fascist standing at the door. Everybody's all upset about it. Well,
and she just lost me. But anyway, let's start again.
Should be upset about it, but we're not going to defeat the fascist by what? What is President Biden offering? He says, let's finish the job. Well, I hope you realize we're talking about millions of voters for whom they can't even survive unless they work at 2 or 3 jobs. What is he saying beyond, the economy is really doing well? Are you kidding me? For whom? We're watching a car crash in slow motion here. Everybody knows it. Some people would say, oh, Ms. Williamson, you're delusional. I'll tell you what's delusional. What's delusional is just closing our eyes and crossing our fingers and just hoping that somehow Biden and Harris will be able to beat that juggernaut of dark, dark vision.
So there it is. The blood is in the water and the sharks are coming for Joe Biden, whether it be from Michigan, whether it be from the Republicans, or whether it be from within his own party with people like Marianne Williamson continuing to spread awareness that he's a weak candidate with a fractured coalition. The problems are there for the Biden campaign. Forget about the normal stuff about his age and his feeble mind and his feeble body. These are actual real concerns that he can win beyond his health. This is whether or not he can create this coalition again in order to carry the day and carry these swing states. It's going to be a bumpy ride for Joe Biden going forward unless he placates these wishes. But again, he has to do that balancing act between the pro-Israel side of his party and the pro-Hamas side of his party.
Like a midget at a urinal, I was going to have to stay on my toes.
Can he do it? I'm not so sure right now. But let's talk about it in the comments. Let me know what you think about all of this. Is Joe Biden a weak candidate? Can he rebuild this coalition? Is it irreparably fractured because of what's going on in Israel? Let me know in the comments. And as always, like and share the video. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Let's get in the comments about all the shenanigans and the buffoonery going on with this election and all issues that are happening every day this week in DUMBmocracy.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.